Hey guys, this is our second take. Welcome to the first episode of the Vanity Diary. My name is Abby Meador. I will be your host, guiding you through this podcast in this series. And today, and probably through every other episode, is the lovely guest and one of my best friends, Hailey Rideout.
Hi, everyone.
I'm sure you have seen her with me. We are best friends. We were together all the time. And we did YouTube together for a while before editing became too much for me.
We really blew up there for a second.
Yeah,
but
it was pretty cool, but this is better.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Just kind of to give you a little preface about what this all is going to be about, this journey. I'm doing this podcast specifically for a chemistry project. The whole project, time is searing. The whole project was to find something outside of school that interests you and find the chemistry in it and the science behind it and everything like that. And through doing this project, I immediately knew I wanted to talk about makeup and skincare. I knew that was something I was really passionate about. And through all of this research and all of this preparing and dropping my last few products for Vanity Avenue, I have learned so much about the reason why makeup works, why certain things work for your skin and why they don't. And it's fascinating to me. It's so interesting. And it's been so just like amazing, being able to see science in a way that I really enjoy. I felt like even in the classroom, I have, understood a lot more. It's weird.
Yeah.
After having done some research on stuff like this, even if it doesn't relate to skin, obviously. But so yeah, for the next, I'm hoping to do this as a monthly thing for at least the next 3 months. We are going to be releasing a podcast every month talking about different topics in the industry, regarding skincare, beauty, makeup, everything like that. And kind of just deep diving into a lot of these concepts as a consumer as well as a brand owner. I've been running my brand, Vanity Avenue Cosmetics, for the past 10 months now. And it's given me a whole new opportunity to see this industry a lot differently and see these ingredients differently and how can I cater best to a whole widespread audience. So, before we start off with this episode, I want to just put a little preface out there for all of you. I am not a beauty skincare professional. That is what I want to do when I'm older. I'm planning on going to beauty school after high school. But right now, I am not a beauty professional by any means. Everything that I will be speaking about today, I have researched. I'll be linking all of my sources below. You can go check out those articles, and maybe take a deep dive yourself about what we're talking about. It's incredibly fascinating, and there are some wonderful pieces I looked at while figuring out kind of how to talk about this with you all. So again, I'm not a professional. And the second thing that I want to preface as well is this is something I'm really going to try to hit as hard as I can with this podcast. Just because something for skincare works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
It's different.
And that can be said for everyone in the world. All of our skin is different, unique. It's really about trial and error, which is annoying. But, I'm going to give you the scientific facts as much as I can. And, you can roll with it and take it as you will. But again, everybody's skin is different, and I'm not a professional. So that's the bottom line. All right, let's get into this. This is really fascinating. Ready. We're going to be talking about today, we're going to go through some facts versus fiction. I'm going to tell you guys, I think there's 8 in here, some kind of myths or fiction in this industry and about skincare and everything and the science behind it. And then kind of just show you why it's wrong.
Just lay it out there.
There's a lot of misconceptions, and the first one we're going to be talking about is one that was particularly interesting to me. So I feel like everyone in the industry, everyone who buys skincare or makeup products, no matter what type of skin you have, right? everyone knows about sensitive skin products. Like, we all see
Right.
that. That's one of the most, like, sold products is things for sensitive skin. That's very, very popular. And a lot of people have sensitive skin. It's a thing people, it's a really common thing that people can go through, especially if you're a teen.
Right.
Especially, there's a lot of factors that can go into it. However, here's the thing. There's a whole other side to this that a lot of people don't know about. Because there's also something called sensitized skin. And it sort of acts the same way as sensitive skin does. And so what'll happen is a lot of people will generally have breakouts or reactions to things. And they automatically jump for the fact that they have sensitive skin. You may not have sensitive skin, you may have sensitized skin. And they're two very different things.
Is it like kind of being used to it?
It's sort of. Okay. So here, let's go into what they mean. Your sensitive skin is a genetic thing.
Okay.
That's something you're born with. It can come from if your parents have sensitive skin, if your siblings have it.
Right.
It's all genetics. Another really interesting factor to it is that if you are allergic to other things, like just in life in general, like foods or peanuts, or I don't know why I singled out peanuts, and animals, if you have asthma even, you're more likely to have sensitive skin.
Okay.
It's just sort of a normal thing. And what happens in the case of you having sensitive skin is the outer layer of your face. This is called the epidermis. We're going to talk about that a lot. The epidermis, when you're born, it's a lot thinner than the normal epidermis on other skin. And what happens is because it's thinner, your blood vessels are up closer to your face, like closer to that outer layer. And that thin layer isn't enough to protect you and to protect your blood vessels and your cells. And so it lets irritants, microbes, and allergens get into your skin, deep into your skin, rather than just necessarily sitting on your skin like how regular layers.
Okay.
It just does a lot more damage. And so when you put an active product, which we will talk about later a little bit more in depth, an active product, I don't think that's like the technical term, but that's kind of what I call it, is a product that's like a treatment. So an acne treatment, a product that's meant to do something.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's like meant to fix something or whatever.
So it's like continuing to work after you apply it.
Yeah. Okay. So if you put like an active thing on top of it, it's going to irritate those blood cells because it's also pushing in those microbes and the irritants and everything into the cells. That's what sensitive skin is. And that is a very real thing. Lots of people do have that. However, there's also sensitized skin. And sensitized skin is a little bit different. It, rather than sensitive skin, is made.
Oh,
so
you don't like just have it.
You're
not born with it. Okay.
It comes through, it's really interesting. It comes through environmental factors or just like habitual things that you do. If you drink, your skin can get irritated and sensitized like that. You smoke, it can get like that. If you live in an area with a lot of pollution, it really can mess with that skin and mess with that outer layer. It does the same thing in that it thins the epidermis, even if you have stress or you have another disease, sort of.
It can play into it.
Exactly. Okay. You're like at more of a risk for it. Even too, you see it pretty commonly in teenagers because our hormones are out of whack.
Right.
That's not scientific, but it's something. So with that sensitized skin and with those hormones, you are likely to get that same reaction. Okay. And so sensitized skin is a lot easier to get rid of in a sense. It could be something you struggle with forever, It really depends. Generally, it is a little bit easier by just changing your habits.
So it could go away.
Exactly.
Okay.
And for the most part, yes. And like drinking, if you're dehydrated, that's another thing that can really stick with it. We'll talk more about water because there is a big misconception on water, which we'll go into. And sensitive skin is something that you can definitely treat, but it's not likely that you will be able to get rid of it necessarily. You know what I mean?
You're just gonna like have to take care of it and like accommodate for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like not, it's kind of just like there.
Right.
So, you know, to dive so quickly right into that sensitive skin and those like particular products for it, you really want to stick with, in regards to that, just figuring out your skin and seeing and asking yourself, do I have sensitive skin or is this sensitized?
Okay.
Because a lot of times if you're treating sensitized skin with sensitive skin products, it messes with the cells, because it's your cells are already up a little closer, and they don't need what that sensitive skin product is giving you.
Oh. Okay.
And so sometimes it can irritate it a little more.
Okay.
And that's, you know, that's a general statement. That's not like an always kind of thing. But so yeah, that's a huge thing. I prior to like researching all of this, I had no clue that sensitized skin was a thing.
I didn't know that was a thing at all.
Not at all.
Nobody talks about it.
And it's a huge, like, a lot of people do have it and they don't know it.
It's crazy.
It's really common. So there's that one. Think about that next time your skin reacts to something. The next one, our next topic, is also very interesting to me. It's a very big marketing scheme. It's a very big thing in the industry. Both my parents work in advertising, so I'm a huge fan of the marketing industry. But this is like a lot. So I think everyone, when you're looking for products, something that's really attractive to see is hypoallergenic, right? You know, and if you don't know what hypoallergenic means, for people listening, it's essentially that there's no allergens, like common allergens, in that product.
Like you couldn't like have an allergic reaction
for the most
easily.
part. For the most part ish.
Okay.
It's like that whole word is very big. It's hard to kind of just like put it in, you know what I mean? But for the most part, yeah, that's sort of what it means. It means it does not have a lot of those irritants. But here's the thing. The term hypoallergenic is very much a scam when you're looking at products. Because here's the thing. This opens up a whole other window. There's this whole debate of an all-natural product versus a chemical product.
Okay.
And people are like, yes, all natural, let's go. And they're like, you know, no chemicals. Chemicals are bad, everything like that.
Get rid of chemicals.
Everything is a chemical.
Yeah.
Bottom line, water is a chemical. Oils are a chemical. Everything that is in all natural is a chemical.
Yeah.
In the science world, that's what we're talking about. It's a chemical. So that's just not correct. And then with hypoallergenic, here's the thing with that term. You like buying that product, you'll be like, oh, I won't have an allergic reaction to this, whatever. But here's the thing. People can have allergic reactions to anything. Some people have allergic reactions of water on their skin. Like, even that will irritate some people.
So, like, you're marketing it as something
that it's not.
And then you get a bad reaction to something, and then it's like, what the heck?
Yeah. And that's a general statement. Like, yes, you know, if you buying a hypoallergenic product is, you know, if that makes you feel better, go right ahead. But again, it really doesn't mean much in the whole terms of things, because at the end of the day, it like, you can have bad reactions to anything.
Right.
And you can have bad reactions when it comes to two certain ingredients being mixed together. It's, you know, they happen through everything. And so that doesn't mean much, is all I'm saying, for the most part. And along with that too, a lot of products will say they're hypoallergenic and they're not. Ooh, and so another thing I would really suggest as a consumer is read your labels before you buy something, and read reviews.
Okay.
That's a huge thing, because you never know what's in a product unless you look at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then unless you know how other people react to it, obviously, just because someone reacts this way to it doesn't mean that you will or won't, whatever. But it's good. It's good to know. I think that that's one of the smartest things you can do as a consumer is know what you're putting on yourself and doing. Yeah. And so that's kind of the whole thing regarding hypoallergenic, is that doesn't really mean everything it's saying. All right. Number 3, we're getting in here. This one gets me. Okay. This one I feel very passionate about, and I'm really excited to talk about. It's kind of the myth of oil.
Okay.
So a lot of products you read are oil free, and that is very attractive as a consumer looking at a product. That's just something that commonly people want, right?
Right.
Oil, here's the thing. Oil is not always bad for you. And people 100% think it is. And that's not the case. Mm-hmm. It is something that can be really good for your skin occasionally, especially if you're using active products underneath it, which in the next podcast we'll go over a little bit about sort of knowing what order to put your products on. Mm-hmm. And oil plays a big part in that. So we'll talk more about that next month. Okay. But it's not that bad for you. And tons of studies have shown that this really does not do as much harm as people often think it does. Okay. And so I'm going to kind of give an example and kind of talk about 2 scientific words that seem very scary when you hear them. First one we're going to talk about is hydrophobic products. Mm-hmm. So hydrophobic products are oil-based. And the thing with these products is that they do not mix with water. Obviously, we hear the term water and oil don't mix. That's just how it is. And here's the thing. When you, a really good example of a hydrophobic product is sunscreen. Because if you are going, you're going swimming and you put on sunscreen, you don't want it to come off in water.
Right, you want it to be...
Yeah, protected. Exactly. Yeah. So if you have, if you put a sunscreen on that's water-based, that's going to come off as soon as you get in the water. Right. But here, if you use sunscreen that's oil-based, you're going to have it stay on because it won't mix with the water. So much sense. Exactly. Okay. And the thing about oil, too, that people don't understand is that if there's something underneath it, it's not going to soak into your skin. So like sunscreen, you should never, we'll talk about this much more in the podcast, and we probably will touch on it a little bit later when we get into moisturizers and hydrators. But most of the time you put on a moisturizer and then you put on your sunscreen. Okay. That's what you should do. And when you're putting it there, it's a shield. That's not going into your skin.
So it's not really doing anything. No. It's just sitting on top of your skin.
It's a protectant.
Okay.
And what it does is it kind of... oil acts as that seal in a way on your skin and doesn't let stuff evaporate off of you, which is a really big deal because you want your cells to pick up on the good active ingredients that you're putting under it and all of this stuff. You're applying. Yeah. And so, it's really useful. And when you use an oil-based product, a hydrophobic product, those are shown a lot too to increase the water content in the epidermis outside of your skin.
Oh, so it helps.
Okay. And it helps hydrate a little bit more. It's it's something that's it's something that is I think people are much more scared of than you actually need to be.
Right.
If you're using it correctly. And you're using, that's the good thing about oil too, you only need to use a tiny amount.
A little goes a long way.
Exactly. And so, if you're using a whole thing of oil on your face, then that's dumb. Yeah, then you shouldn't do that. And the other thing about oil too is it's really good at, let me talk about this first. Some people are so scared of oils, right? Mm-hmm. But a lot of really popular skin products, especially moisturizers, they have like they'll have vitamin E oil or grapeseed oil or something like that in it. And they aren't worried about that. But it's like, here's the thing. If you're using an oil by itself, that's an even purer form of what you're already putting on.
Oh, okay.
It's even less messed with in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, hydrophobic products are really useful for certain things.
Yeah.
And along with that, another huge, amazing use of it. This is one of my favorite things about oils. It is an incredible and inexpensive makeup remover.
That's right. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
And so, we'll talk about this a lot more in the next podcast as we're talking about putting stuff on your skin and taking stuff off. But so what happens is when you put that oil on your face, it sort of breaks apart the molecules in the foundation and everything on your skin, and it just wipes it off.
That makes a lot of sense.
And if you were using a water-based makeup remover, it's going to come off a lot harder.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, in cases like that, you really want to think about hydrophobic products and using oils, because they're really good at taking off makeup and such like that, and refreshing your skin. And then, of course, you cleanse with something else after, which is in the next episode.
Don't cleanse with oil.
Don't cleanse with oil. And then, I should have touched on this a little bit earlier, but hydrophilic is the exact opposite. It's water-based products.
Okay.
And again, this does not mix with oils things. And so, here in hydrophilic products, you're often gonna find that when you use, this is very interesting too, if you use a water-based product, it often reduces the water content in the epidermis.
Really?
Because nothing is locking in that water, and it evaporates off your skin.
So it's just water on water.
That's how you get dry skin a lot of the time, is the evaporation. And this was super interesting too, because I could totally relate to it. Sometimes after I shower, I will get out and I won't moisturize right away because I don't want to go upstairs. I'm lazy.
Right.
And after 10 minutes of not having moisturizer on, my skin gets really dry. And it's because in that time, all of this
moisture
stuff has come out.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
And so it's just it's knowing the difference between those base products and knowing what you need for your specific need. Obviously, like I said, too much oil, not good. But it is not terrifying it's put out there.
Yeah.
And if you're someone who reacts to oil, don't use oil.
Right.
This is a general statement that oil is not as bad as it always is portrayed. So there's that. The next one, this one is a little bit shorter. This next one, I think the one after it is a little bit shorter too. But so we're gonna talk about, this one is also a big marketing scam. We're gonna talk about morning creams, like morning moisturizers, and nighttime moisturizers. We're gonna talk a little bit more about what the term moisture and moisturizers mean a little bit later. But for right now, we're just gonna talk about the difference between a night product, the night lotion, and a morning lotion, and stuff like that. So depending on the brand, my favorite brand, which I don't want to say because we're going to go into it in another podcast and do a whole thing about it. But my favorite brand, and a lot of brands in general, you see very commonly being sold a night cream and then a morning cream, two separate products. And that's kind of just how it goes. And you buy both of them, right?
Of course.
If you look at the ingredients on both of these products, they're essentially the same thing. A morning and a night cream.
What a scam.
They're literally the same thing. Almost, not every time and not every cream, but depending on the brand and if you check those ingredients, really there isn't that big of a difference. The one big difference that's really, really noticeable is the morning cream often has sunscreen. And here's the thing about that. You should not be using a moisturizer with a sunscreen in it. You should buy a sunscreen separate.
So two separate products.
Because if you're mixing that sunscreen with the moisturizer, you're diluting the sunscreen. And
makes a lot of sense.
And so you're not getting that same protection that you would get from the outer shield that is sunscreen.
And like you see that a lot is putting them together, and people think, oh, I'm doing like two things at once, and it's great, but
it's like 2-in-1 soap. You know, that's dumb. That doesn't work. Like you're diluting a product, and people don't realize that. Like, I feel like for most people, if you were like 2-in-1 shampoo, that's not smart. Like, that's not something you should use.
But it's the same thing.
It's the same concept.
Yeah.
And so, really, you know, I personally used to freak out if I ran out of like a morning cream.
Yeah.
And I went to the store and they were out, and I had to get at night. I had peanuts before this. I had to get a night cream instead. But they're the same thing.
Yeah.
And personally, for at least the brand I use, I prefer how that night cream feels.
Yeah, it's
for
just
every
like
day.
nicer,
It's just
like,
soft.
Soft and more thick, I feel like.
And it totally depends on the brand. Again, it depends on how you like your lotion to feel.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of the times if you're looking at these two products, they're the same thing. And so I think that's a really big thing to consider when you're buying. It's just sort of...
Save your money.
Exactly. Like, ways to save money. And especially if you're a high schooler, that's a big thing that you need to work on. Like, that we have to do. So, that's one. The next thing we're going to talk about kind of ties in with that. We're going to talk about moisture versus hydration.
Okay.
And these two different concepts, because they are very different as well.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people often use these terms interchangeably, and they're not.
Yeah. Okay.
They're very different concepts, and they're needed for different kinds of skin.
Okay.
So, let's talk about moisture first. Okay. So, if you're using a moisturizer, the whole point of a moisturizer is that it sort of acts as a barrier for your skin. It's kind of how we talked about oil, like that creates like a shield. It's sort of like that. However, the only thing it blocks is it keeps water in your skin.
Oh, so it's meant to lock it in. Okay.
And so that doesn't necessarily, like if you're using an active product underneath it, that's not necessarily the best thing to put over it. Some can be. It's really the ingredients you have to look at a lot, and the concentration of things in every makeup like that, and just knowing your skin. But moisturizer for the most part is used to lock in moisture on your skin that you already have. It essentially is like when your skin is like dry and flaky, that's how you know that you need moisturizer.
Okay.
Is through that. It really, as we talked about earlier, it reduces that water that evaporates off of your skin. That's your big thing with moisturizer. Hydrators though, very different. Hydrators are essentially, what they do is they go into the epidermis. They go below it. And they rehydrate the cells underneath. And when those cells get rehydrated, they're bouncy, they're bigger.
Which makes your skin like
look
supple.
better. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I literally wrote down supple.
Really?
That's funny, yeah. It makes it supple and bouncy. And a lot of the times, if you have oily skin, you're going to need a hydrator.
Okay.
That's for the most part. Obviously, everyone needs moisturizer every now and then. Everyone needs hydrator every now and then. But for the most part, if you have dry skin, if your skin is extra, extra dry, go for a moisturizer. If it's oily, go for a hydrator. Combination, both. Switch them up.
Oh, okay.
But so yeah, they infuse cells with water inside of your face. So because if your cells are dehydrated, like when that happens, they shrivel up, and that can give the appearance of lines in your skin,
that
wrinkles, exactly, like dull, just stuff like that. That's essentially the big difference between the two. And even me personally, I feel like I have really dry skin. And if I looked at those two words, those two different products, I would off the top of my head think that I need a hydrator because my skin's dry, hydration. But I need a moisturizer.
Yeah.
It's just like knowing the difference between the two and knowing what you need is really important.
Okay.
So that's our big thing there. I don't even know what number we're on. Almost done. This next one is really short. This one is about the myth of shaving your face.
Ooh, yes. Okay.
I also love this topic. For the past, you remember my Nair days.
I do remember your Nair days.
For like a year and a half, I used to Nair. And if you don't know what Nair is, it's essentially...
It's a hair removal cream.
It's this cream that you put on your skin. And essentially, you would let it sit for like 10 minutes. I would let it sit for 20 because I was psycho. And you let it sit, and then you clean it off, wash it off, and your hair would be gone. Like peach fuzz, mustache, everything like that. You could do it around... I did it around my eyebrows, which is so dumb.
That's really scary.
I know. And after doing it, my skin was always red. It always hurt.
Irritated.
It was not worth it, but it was what I did, and it was all I knew how to do. But so recently I've gotten into shaving my face, and more seriously I've gotten into dermaplaning. Ooh. And that's a little bit different than shaving. We'll dive deep on the difference between those two a little bit later in the series as we go on. But for now, essentially, with dermaplaning, it's a blade still. And I'll link some of these products below and stuff like that and everything so you guys can see them. But essentially it's kind of like a blade still, but it's just one blade, and it's just like, I can't think of how to describe it. It like goes straight instead of like sideways, like when you shave.
Like a regular razor.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it like, and what it does is it shaves the peach fuzz off your face and the hair, but then it also is a really good exfoliator.
Oh,
and it takes off dead skin.
Oh, okay.
And it's really gentle. It's a really gentle way to exfoliate physically. We'll talk about those. That will be our like finale, is talking about exfoliants. Because
would you like say it's more safe than shaving your face with like a regular razor?
Well, it depends on what razor.
Right.
You know, if you're buying a razor that you're like using on your legs, there's so many problems with using. Don't do that. Don't share razors. Don't mix razors. But you know, my sister, how she shaves her face is she gets like the men's shaving of the month thing, and I do dermaplaning, and they're essentially the same thing.
Okay.
The big difference is dermaplaning is more of an exfoliator as well.
Okay.
But so anyway, now after describing those two, after Nair, I've been dermaplaning for the past 3 months, and it has changed my life. It's so amazing. My makeup goes on so much better without hair, which I didn't think that it would change that much, but it's so much better. I'm not irritated anymore because of the Nair. You know, it just goes on a lot better and a lot easier. And overall, you know, you just do it once a week, all good. Don't have to worry about it.
Mess free, yeah.
And, but so I love dermaplaning. I'm a huge fan of that. But anyway, the whole myth with shaving your face or dermaplaning or any of that is, there's this whole thing that your hair grows back thicker.
And like
if you shave it.
Too.
Yeah, that's the myth. That is 100% false. And now let me tell you why. This isn't just like a generalized statement. This does not happen. What happens is when you sorry, we saw a dog. When you shave the hair, that like razor makes a blunt cut on the hair, right? And when that starts to grow out, that blunt cut can appear thicker and darker to some extent.
Okay.
Depending on your hair type and everything like that. But it does not mean that hair is actually darker or thicker. It's that it's a blunt cut.
Okay.
And, you know, as you shave better, you can learn ways around that and stuff like that. It's totally false. I'm 100% an advocate for shaving your face. I think it's so nice. But so yeah, that's false. So that's a really interesting one. The next one is really short. I'm not going to say much about it. You can take it or leave it. So again, this is a generalized statement, but relatively this is the truth and this is scientifically a thing. Right now you see a lot of stuff for like drink water
and your skin will
go
like
water.
be magical.
Yeah, like your life changes when you drink water. I love drinking water. I'm a huge advocate for it. Drink it. Go right ahead, girl. But you are not going to change your skin overnight by drinking water.
By just drinking
exactly.
water. Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Your body, when you drink water, that water gets to your skin last. That's its last priority. And so you have to be drinking
and stuff.
So much water
to make a difference.
For it to even make a difference, yeah.
Okay.
Because drinking water, because like I said, that's the last place it goes. It can improve other things in your body. You can have headaches. You don't have headaches anymore if you're drinking enough water. You can't, so you'll feel more awake. Just things like that. But your skin, that's the last thing it's gonna get to.
It would just have to be a lot of water.
And that's just not possible. Okay. So drink water. I'm not at all saying that, but that is not the sole way to fix your skin, and that is not going to fix your skin perfectly.
Cool.
So that one's pretty it. This next one I'm super passionate about. This is our last topic we're going to go over. And this is the whole thing about exfoliants.
Ooh.
And this one like gets me going. Let me start off by saying something to you, the listener. If you're still listening this far, good for you, girl.
Thank you for staying.
Thank you so much. This one, I'll tell you a little tea on. So in, like, June of last year, Vanity Avenue released a lip scrub, right? And it was a huge hit. People really loved it. It was a good product, whatever. Mm-hmm. That is probably the only product I regret making as a business. And I've said that to you several times. I don't like it. And that we're going to go over why. I wasn't educated enough at the time to know why. It's not that would harm anyone. It didn't harm anyone. It's just
not the best for you.
Exactly. It's not like, it's not going to hurt you in any way. It's just not necessarily the perfect treatment.
Right.
And there's a lot of stuff that's very glamorized for being fun and self-care, like masks. We'll talk about face masks next month. I could go on about masks for hours. That is such a scam, but we'll talk about that later. So we're going to talk about these exfoliants. If you don't know what exfoliating is, it essentially is the process of getting dead skin cells and flakes off of your skin to make it more supple.
Smoother.
Exactly. And make it, your makeup will go on better if you're exfoliated, such like that. And yeah, stuff like that. So there's two classes of an exfoliant. Mm-hmm. And those two classes that we're going to dive into are the physical exfoliants and the chemical exfoliants.
Okay.
Automatically, again, chemicals scare people.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll talk about those in a sec and why they're actually really good for you. That's whole fascinating to me too. And let me start this little section off too by saying, as if you're a teenager, if you're under, if you're young, here's the thing. Your skin naturally exfoliates itself. The cells will turn over and you will lose that dead skin. It's it's a natural process. So you don't even need to be exfoliating necessarily. Your skin takes care of that for the most part.
Kind of just doing more that you don't need to do.
Exactly. And you can do it. Like if you're doing it, well, and you're doing it not super often, then it can be good. But, it's your skin does it naturally, and it's not something you really need to focus on all the time.
Right.
And with that too, I also think it's very, you'll see a lot of like face washes that are like exfoliating face wash. And those annoy me so much because you should not be exfoliating every day.
2 times a day
At all, yeah.
That same cleanser.
You should not at all be doing that.
good.
At most, you should be doing it twice a week. In my opinion, only once a week.
Okay.
But again, it really depends on opinions and how your skin reacts and how you feel about it. But so anyway, let's jump into it. Physical exfoliants and physically exfoliating your skin is the process of using small grains to get that dead skin off.
Okay.
These can include like sugar scrubs, like I did in June with Vanity Avenue. Walnut scrubs is another big one. Tea. Sand scrubs, things like that.
Anything
to
grainy.
get that, grainy. So here's the thing about sugar scrubs, my sugar scrubs, which I made in June, that is the most soft way to physically exfoliate your skin. That's probably the best way.
Okay.
So if you want to exfoliate your skin physically, use a sugar scrub for the most part. That's going to be better. You definitely want to avoid nuts, nut scrubs, fruit pit scrubs, things like that.
Gosh.
Because here's the thing.
Fruit pit scrubs.
Yeah. Here's the thing with these grains and it's hard to say because it really, again, depends on the skin and the person.
Right.
But all scrubs can do this depending on, how hard you're scrubbing, what your skin is like and everything. Physically exfoliating creates micro tears, they're called. And they're exactly what they sound like. They're tiny little tears in the epidermis. And again, this can lead to sensitized skin. It all comes back.
Full circle.
And, it weakens your outer layer, and then you can react poorly to things and such like that. It messes with the cells. And a lot of the stuff that they put in these particular scrubs is like, it's like, oh, it's a cotton candy sugar scrub. Oh, it's a hot pink unicorn scrub, whatever.
Like, sounds fun, but
you're letting that dye and that like flavor into your skin, which you shouldn't be doing. And so it's all of this like glitz and glamour that's like hurting your skin.
Right.
So for the most part, you can physically exfoliate in a safe way with a sugar scrub, and if you do it not often, and if you're smart about it and gentle with it, if you really want to. However, what I really recommend and what I personally use and am obsessed with is chemical exfoliants.
Okay, tell me
And
about this.
exactly like I said, people get scared at the idea of chemicals.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I heard this really good quote from a dermatologist in one of the articles I was reading. I don't remember her name. I'll put that link below so you guys can see. But she said, sometimes you can't fight nature with nature. And so sometimes you can't treat your skin with natural ingredients. You need a chemical to come in and treat that.
Okay.
And so that's what the chemical exfoliants really do, is they help treat that that skin that's a little bit harder to deal with. And this is something people also are surprised to hear as well. It is so much less abrasive on your skin than a physical exfoliant.
Which, yeah, it sounds backwards. But
It sounds like it shouldn't be like that. It's weird, but it totally is. And I know for me personally, my skin reacts really quickly and like not good to treatment products. Like that's just not something it loves. So I was nervous getting into this and like learning more about this. However, there are two classes of chemical exfoliants. And one of them is really good if you have sensitive skin, and one of them is really good if you have oily skin.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about those really quick. So the first type is, they're called AHAs.
Ooh.
And AHAs are made from natural substances. They're really good at getting off that dry skin, and essentially they work to get the glue. It's not actual glue, but the metaphoric glue that holds those dead skin cells to your face. And the really good thing about AHAs is that they, for the most part, hit the top layer, the epidermis. They don't go underneath.
Instead of sinking in.
Yeah. Okay. And so an AHA is something really good to use if you have dry skin, because that is a problem with your epidermis, and it can easily take care of the epidermis.
Okay.
If you're looking for a chemical exfoliant, these can include, 2 examples of these. There's hundreds of them. You can look them up. Everything depends on you and you as a person and what works for your skin. But glycolic acid is a really popular one, and so is lactic acid. That's the one I use. It's really good for your skin. And again, you only need to use these once every week, every 2 weeks, even, it depends really. But so the second type are called BHAs. And these are oil-based products. They are hydrophobic. And they go in deeper. They go below the epidermis, and they are really good if you have acne-prone skin or if you have really oily skin.
Okay.
Again, it turns over the cells. It helps to go in deeper and help with stuff that you have going on that isn't just in your epidermis. Okay. It's, there's those 2 work for your situation. And a really popular one that they have is salicylic acid. Okay. Which, if you have more oily skin, that might be something you're interested in. But so they're very different products. Like I said, the BHAs are more hydrophobic, and your AHAs are more hydrophilic. Okay. And so again, we'll go into this in the next podcast, but if you use an AHA that's water-based, you're going to want to put that sealant over it. Either way, both of these are treatment products, and you're going to want to, help that stay in and
put something over
and
it.
Work. So we'll talk about that next time a lot more and go into more detail and depth about it. But yeah, that's all my facts.
Wow.
So thank you guys so much for listening. If you're still here, this was so fun to do. I adore talking about this stuff, and I can't wait to share with you the next podcast episode we'll have coming for you next month. Yeah, thank you, Hailey, for being here. I know this is kind of boring.
No, it was really interesting. I learned a lot.
But so, yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll link all the socials below. I'll link my Instagram, Vanity Avenue's Instagram, and this podcast Instagram. And let you get in touch if you have any questions. Comment below anything you'd like us to talk about, any questions you have. I'd be super happy to respond or get back to you or talk about something further in another podcast. So, thank you so much for the support. I love you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.